To meeting number 131 of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to remind all in-person participants to read the best practices guidelines and the cards on the table. These measures are in place to protect the health and safety of all participants. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Friday, September 6, 2024, the committee is resuming its study of passenger rail service Via Rail Canada incident of August 31st, 2024. I'd now like to welcome our witnesses. Appearing today, we have the Honourable Anita Anand, Minister of Transport. Welcome, Minister. And from the Department of Transport, we have Arun Tangaraj, Deputy Minister. Welcome to you, sir. Lisa Setlakwi, Assistant Deputy Minister, Safety and Security. Welcome. And of course, we have Craig Hutton, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister for Policy. Minister, we're going to give you 5 minutes for your opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this important discussion on the unacceptable experience and treatment of passengers aboard the Via Rail train during an incident that happened during Labour weekend. I am pleased to be with you today and accompanied by the representatives and officials from Transport Canada. Thank you for inviting us.
I was shocked to hear about the treatment of Via Rail passengers who were stranded for more than 10 hours on a train between Drummondville and Quebec City. Passengers had to endure physical and psychological discomfort for hours. Some described the situation as being like in prison. Some said they no longer felt safe. This is completely unacceptable, Mr. Chair. This situation is frustrating and disappointing. There is always the possibility of delays when traveling, but Via Rail has a responsibility to passengers' health and well-being when things like this happen. Simply put, passengers deserved much better treatment on August 31st. On m'a dit que le train a eu une défaillance.
I was told that there were mechanical failures on the train, and this is now being studied by Via Rail. But a mechanical breakdown does not justify the fact that passengers were stuck on that train for 10 hours. Chair, these passengers had limited access to essential services such as food, water, and bathroom access.
Stepped in and met with Via Rail executives about this unacceptable incident to demand answers. And immediately after the incident, we demanded Via Rail to take concrete steps and report back to us to ensure that this type of thing does not happen again. Simply put, Via Rail has to improve employee training so that their service crew is well equipped to respond to all kinds of situations. They have to do better, providing updates to passengers on their trains more frequently so that they know what's going on, and they have to review procedures for incidents like these when a train breaks down so that passengers receive a basic standard of care so that passengers are treated with dignity. For example, I think that if you get stuck on a train for 10 hours, you should always have access to a functioning toilet, but you shouldn't be stuck on a train for 10 hours to begin with. We also requested that Via Rail provide us with a robust, updated emergency management action plan, and we asked to receive that in 30 days. And at our request, Via has improved the way they respond to situations like these, but we have yet to receive their revised action plan. Via Rail is independent. They're responsible for determining operational issues related to their network. They need to have alternate travel options available in case of disruptions, which obviously must be provided before the situation escalates into a 10-hour ordeal. Passenger rail is a critical link for Canadian communities. Via Rail plays an important role in helping connect people across this country, including Indigenous and remote communities. And we will keep demanding of them to provide a reliable rail service that meets the needs of all Canadians. I am pushing Via Rail to ensure that passengers are treated with dignity and respect, the dignity and respect that they deserve. Notre gouvernement a pour priorité à réduire.
Our government's priority is to reduce the number of delays and ensure the security of passengers. We expect that Via Rail do better.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those opening remarks, Minister. We'll begin our line of questioning today with Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing today. And congratulations on your new appointment. I do have some serious concerns, though, because after 9 years, we've seen some pretty significant failures with the transportation files. We've seen Canadian passengers being stranded in airports and trains for hours, even days on end. We've seen labor disruptions that have put our economy at peril at our ports, our railways, and our airlines. Costs have gone up. The cost of air travel has gone up. The cost of freight has gone up. At a time when Canadians are facing a record affordability crisis, there are more and more higher costs coming from the transportation file. Minister, we're a G7 country. There are billions of dollars in economic flows. Millions of passengers are counting on reliable transportation. What message does it say to Canadians, and in fact, the rest of the world, that we only have a part-time transport minister?
Mr. Chair, it is absolutely insulting to hear the Conservatives refer to this position and me in person as a part-time minister, when in fact the Conservatives themselves did not have a Minister of Transport. Instead, they had a Minister of many things. There was no standalone Minister of Transport except in one instance. They chose to put that portfolio into an omnibus portfolio. Minister of Transport, Infrastructure, Communities, Minister of Economic Development Agency of Canada for the regions of Quebec, and Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. So it is laughable that the opposition is referring to me as a part-time minister when I am executing two portfolios expeditiously, responsibly, and with dedication to the people of Canada.
Thank you, Minister. I want to turn to the events in Quebec over the Labor Day weekend. Of course, we had passengers stuck on the train, as you said in your statement, for over 10 hours. They had limited food and water. We heard from the passengers, we heard from the workers, we heard from the union officials that this was, in fact, not an isolated incident. Can you commit that this will be the last time that passengers are stranded on a Via train with limited food and water for more than 5 hours?
I want to start by committing to ensuring that Via Rail has revised protocols so this never happens again. Via Rail is an independent organization. It is a Crown corporation, and it is operationally separate. But I am demanding better service, better quality, better protocols, better communication plans from Via Rail. And in fact, I have demanded a third-party investigation on the events. I have demanded an update of its emergency action plan, and I've demanded an update of the review of employee training. So you can see, Mr. Chair, in the short time that I have been Transport Minister, I have been on the phone with the Chair of Via Rail, with the CEO of Via Rail, demanding better services for passengers, demanding better for the population of our country.
Thank you, Minister, but I don't think protocols will quite cut it. And in fact, all these words were said after the incident that happened in Cobourg in my riding, when residents in my riding had to sit for hours and hours on the Via train. These words were again spoken. It's happened again in Quebec. So I'm asking here, yes or no, can you commit today to not stranding passengers for more than 5 hours going forward on the Via Rails?
I can commit that Via Rail will do better for their passengers. And I can also say that after the December 2022 incident, Via Rail committed to an action plan that improved the way they handled emergencies with passengers in tow. And it is clear that these policies weren't properly applied on Labor Day weekend of this year, and that's why I have asked for an updated emergency management plan, a third-party investigation, concrete steps to improve communication, and I will ensure that these issues are addressed. Passengers deserve better, and Canadians deserve
and
better.
passengers require more than just protocols and action plans. They require results. Could you give us an outline of how many times your predecessor, Minister Rodriguez, talked to VIA in the 3 months, either by email or by phone conversation, 3 months prior to the incident?
I will ask my Deputy Minister to respond to that question.
So thank you for the question. I know that immediately following this incident, the previous minister did speak with Via Rail. I personally spoke with the chair of Via Rail as well as the CEO on this occasion.
How many times did he talk to in the 3 months prior, how many times did the minister talk to Via Rail?
I'm not privy to
Thank you.
all the time.
I'd like to actually stop right now, and I'd like to bring a motion. I'm hoping it'll be done very quickly, UC motion, to have the former minister, Pablo Rodriguez, who's currently a member of Parliament, appear before this meeting, before this committee as part of the VIA study.
Okay.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Lauzon.
This member don't even let the witnesses answer his question. He's already have
With respect,
another
Mr. Chair,
motion
that's not a
because he
point of
didn't
order.
answer the question, and he was going to ask the.
It's not a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lauzon. We have a motion that was put forward by Mr. Lawrence, which is up for discussion.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Iachino.
Thank you for acknowledging me. Just for sake of the interpreters, I think it would be respectful for all parties to be able to ask a question, as well as to give the person to whom we're asking the question the time to respond the question, and not to do like our colleagues across just recently, to jump over and to overtalk. I think I have a problem hearing it. I'm virtual today, so I ask of you, Mr. Chair, that you impose this rule because it does disturb my ears when we have people over talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iachino. So noted. I'd ask all members to please allow proper time for translation, particularly for those who are joining us virtually. Mr. Bachrach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my colleague, Mr. Lawrence, bringing this motion forward. I think he's trying to get some very specific information about communication between the former minister and Via Rail, and I appreciate that this incident happened right at the end of his time as minister, so it's understandably difficult for the current minister to provide information on what the former minister was communicating at the time. So I don't see it as being out of order. My concern is that we have the new minister with us. We have a limited amount of time. I have a whole bunch of questions I would love to ask her. I hope that we can dispatch with this motion as quickly as possible so that we can get back to the important testimony.
Yeah, so we would be agreeable to doing that in the second round at the end of this, so that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to push that motion to the second round, so we have all the time that we can possibly have with the minister. Oui, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
Je voulais juste être sûr, là, quand on dit aux deux.
Just wanted to be sure, when you're talking about the second round, it's the second hour? Yes, the second hour, precisely.
Mr. Lawrence, you have 25 seconds left, sir.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Minister. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Prochainement, nous avons Monsieur Lauzon.
Next up, we have Mr. Lauzon. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being with us today. A number of witnesses have spoken about this incident to date, and they've spoken about other delays. We've heard a lot of reasons. Via Rail mentioned that there were mechanical issues. Via Rail also mentioned environmental factors, weather, disturbances on railways. Madam Minister, as you may know, our committee has studied high-speed rail. Could you explain how high-speed rail could change the face of rail service and could improve things at Via Rail, for example?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. First of all, Chair, I'd like to say that there needs to be some kind of predictability at Via Rail at the moment. Not later on, but right now. We've discussed incidents, and we're continuing to discuss these incidents. High-speed rail and high-frequency rail in this country should be something we should be think about. We need to think outside the box. We are a G7 country. We need to have the infrastructure and transport means for Canadians today and for Canadians in the future. That is a priority for our government. And that is not the case of the opposition. So what are we doing? We've heard from providers. We have 3 projects that we're looking at the moment. These are high-frequency and high-speed rail projects. There's a team that is looking into this. They're looking into the supply components of this, and then we will be choosing one project to get another rail system for the future of Canada. And the benefits are clear as well. It'll have a clear impact, beneficial impact on our transportation system, but there will be other benefits as well. Thank you, Minister.
Important part of Canada's history. In fact, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau made intercity rail service essential across Canada, which established Via Rail. It came from there. And as a Crown corporation and the first national passenger rail company, how important it is for the government to invest in service like Via Rail.
Well, c'est clair. Comme j'ai dit
Clearly,
déjà.
as I said earlier, it's not just a matter of transport. There are also environmental factors at play, and climate change needs to be taken into account as well. We need to be able to reduce GHG emissions. And that is a possibility offered by high-speed and high-frequency rail. There's also the matter of affordable housing located next to transit stations with, once again, high-frequency and high-speed rail. We know that Canada will have interesting opportunities in this regard. We need to be competitive with other countries on the world stage, yes, but we also need to be there for Canadians. I will be asking Via Rail now and going forward for additional high-speed and high-frequency projects.
A bit of confusions and misunderstanding about Transport Canada and Via Rail. We heard it. We all heard it here with Via Rail and Transport Canada. Can you please share with us, with this committee, what the relationship in between you, Minister, and Via Rail or your staff?
Listen, I want to start by stating a very basic fact, that Via is a Crown corporation. VIA is operationally separate from the Government of Canada. The Government of Canada is the sole shareholder of VIA. We therefore can set the broad policy parameters under which VIA operates. But when there is a situation like we are discussing today outside of Quebec City, for example, c'est la responsabilité de Via Rail.
It becomes up to Via Rail to address this. I will be asking them the right questions and making sure that we get the right answers to what happened. And I will tell them they need to do a better job for Canada.
With the CEO and the chair of the board,
Merci.
that was unacceptable, and that has to change.
Thank you very much, Minister, and merci, Monsieur Lauzon. Prochainement, nous avons Monsieur Barcelou-Duval.
Thank you, Mr. Lauzon. Next up, we have Mr. Barcelou-Duval for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Minister, and congratulations on your appointment as Minister of Transport. I do share the concern we heard earlier. You know, you have two portfolios, that is Treasury Board and Transport, and these are two large departments. I can only imagine how hard it is to find the time to do both things adequately, but I suppose it's up to you to demonstrate this going forward. To start off, since we're talking about Via Rail today, I wanted to say that right off the bat, I am pleasantly surprised that you were able to speak with Via Rail's senior management since you were appointed. If there is blame to lay with regard to all this Via Rail situation, I do not blame you personally. I do blame Via Rail for poor management, bad service delivery, and other factors. However, if there is blame to lay on the government, I would say that it would be with regard to the late implementation of high-frequency rail. In addition, there is certain issues with obsolete trains, and there are other concerns to see that these incidents come time and time again. What do you have to say about that?
Merci pour la question. Et
Thank you for the question and for your comments as well. I will start off by saying I completely agree with you. These incidents are unacceptable. Whether it's the first time they happen, the second, or the third, delays like this are unacceptable. I've only been the Minister of Transport for 3 weeks, but as you said, I have spoken with Via Rail's leadership, and I told them it was unacceptable. It's not acceptable now, and it won't be acceptable tomorrow. So what will you be doing now? I want updates. Going forward, I want a communications protocol, and I told them I wanted to know what their plan is to offer exceptional service to passengers. Thank you for the answer. What I'd like to know, however, is the following. When it comes to dedicated tracks and high-frequency, high-speed rail, renewing the fleet of trains, the government did make a commitment on both levels, but I'm not feeling like there's a sense of urgency here. I don't feel like that there's money attached to this. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Are there things coming up? We would like to see concrete measures, because there are issues with the fleet of trains that are becoming obsolete since they've been there since the 1950s. They're in that Montreal-Toronto corridor, and then there might be even more trains that are obsolete if there is no investment to come.
pour ces questions aussi. I'd like
Thank you
to
for those questions as well.
invested in new trains in the corridor that are entering into service right now. And
Je vous parle de la flotte long courrier, Madame la Ministre, pas de la flotte.
I'm talking about the larger fleet.
We have announced an investment in new cars. We are in the pre-procurement stage of those cars, and I want to stress that our investments over 2021 through to 2024 have been in the millions of dollars because we believe in rail service, we believe in renewing the fleet, and that includes in budget 2024 funding for a new fleet. I'll ask my Deputy Minister to provide further details.
So as the Minister said, in 2018, the government announced that Siemens, or Via Rail, announced that Siemens had obtained a contract for the purchase of new locomotives and rolling stock that are currently
OK, merci, je comprends, là, mais est-ce que
Thank
vous me
you.
parlez
I
encore?
fully understand, but what you're talking about is the fleet between Montreal and Toronto. What I'm curious, or rather, there's no money attached to the long-distance, long-haul fleet. So I don't have a lot of time left for this. So could you please address this point?
Des rails, mais un autre
Rather,
type.
my next question is about Via Rail, but it's a different type of railway. Every time that your predecessor, Mr. Rodriguez, came before this committee, I asked him a question about whether the money for studies for a tramway between Ottawa and in Ottawa-Gatineau was coming, and he said, be patient, it's going to be there soon. And now you're here with us before this committee, and he said that the money was coming for this study since 2018-19. But Madam Minister, you're here with us today. Can you tell us about when this funding will be announced for a study on the tram way in Ottawa-Gatineau? I'm sure that we have some constituents that would be happy to hear that. I'll start us off. First of all, I'd like to say this is a priority for our government. This is a file that's being considered by the Minister of Infrastructure and Affordable Housing. But again, I will let my Deputy Minister answer that question.
We'll work with our colleagues at Infrastructure Canada on the funding for the study.
Merci. Thank you. Merci, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
Thank you, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
The floor is now yours. 6 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Minister. Congratulations on your new role. It's good to have you here speaking about this very important situation that happened with Via Rail. I wanted to take a moment to introduce Leela Dance, our wonderful new Member of Parliament from Elmwood, Transcona in Manitoba. We're delighted to have her on board, and you know, we take TRAN so seriously we're going to send twice as many people to committee. Even though that's only 2, it's 100% increase. So there you go. Minister, you talked about staff and your demands of them, Via Rail staff, and your expectations. We had a passenger who was on that train here at a previous meeting, and he told us about his experience during those 10 hours. It was very challenging. It was difficult. People were anxious and concerned. He also talked about the skill and competence of the Via Rail staff. And I ride the train as much as I can, and my experience has been that they've been caring and competent and professional. And I wanted to start my remarks just by thanking Via Rail staff. I know they do an incredible job with limited resources. We talked a little bit about training when we had the representatives from Unifor here, and I know that a lot of your government's response to VIA was that they need to do better training. The union doesn't think that's the problem. They think the problem is that they're trying to do a professional job with limited resources. So if in the wake of this investigation you're holding, it comes out that Via Rail actually needs more resources from your government so that it can be more resilient, will you provide those resources to Via Rail?
Well, I want to begin by saying that resources have been a question that we have, as a government, focused on, and that's why ensuring that we have investments in Via Rail over the course of numerous years. 2021, $490 million, 2022, $354 million, 2023, $210 million, 2024, funding for a new fleet. So you can see from that we as a government take this file and Via Rail very seriously. We also take the importance of service delivery seriously. But of course, because Via Rail is operationally separate, we need to see that third-party report to find out why this train experienced the mechanical failure that it did. But apart from that, I said in my calls to Via Rail CEO and chair of the board that it is unacceptable for a train to be on the tracks for 10 hours with not enough food, not enough water, not workable toilets. That's not a labor-intensive issue. That is a practice that they can put in place regardless of the actual training that the laborers or the employees have. So if there's a request for more funding, we will consider it. But there are things that Via Rail can do right now, to make sure that this situation doesn't happen again.
Minister, I wonder if after the 2022 incident, because this is the second time we've had a train break down and strand passengers, and we heard a very similar message after the December 2022 incident, was improved training one of the directives provided by the minister after that incident?
Yes, and let me tell you that the processes were in place, but they weren't followed in 2024. Management, crew, employees will take more training. There's ongoing testing of response plans. That's already started. That's going to help us understand how well those plans are working. But that's the operational level at Via Rail. From a ministerial level and the Government of Canada level, we have a responsibility to demand better of that Crown Corporation. And that's exactly what I'm doing here today.
Minister, you've talked about HFR and your plan for improved passenger rail, dedicated passenger rail between Toronto and Quebec City. That's Canada's most populous corridor. And I think, in principle, it's something that we strongly support, building that infrastructure. We want to see it done publicly in the public interest, not for private profit. However, we haven't heard your government's vision for passenger transportation in rural Canada. It's been years now since Greyhound terminated its service in Canada, leaving hundreds of communities across the country without affordable passenger transportation options. Via Rail service in rural Canada is extremely limited and challenged by the fact that it shares the tracks with the major freight companies. And I think people in rural Canada today have fewer passenger transportation options than they have in 100 years. What is your vision for passenger transportation in rural Canada, and what are you willing to do as a government to ensure rural Canadians have the options they deserve?
Thank you for that question also. I come from rural Canada. I was born in Kentville, Nova Scotia. It is in the middle of the Annapolis Valley, and we depended on different types of transportation to get around. And so your questions about rural are very well taken, and I appreciate them. Let's say that Canada has the challenging geography that we as a department and as a government need to address. That is making sure that there is adequate rail, bus, and transportation to access remote communities. I have seen my honourable colleague, Mr. Chair, in a canoe in British Columbia. I would like to say,
that's not the government's vision.
I would like to say that we have to ensure that we are being innovative, and that's why high-speed, high-frequency rail is just one facet of what we are considering.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Of this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bachrach. Next, we'll go to Mr. Muse. Mr. Muse, the floor is yours. 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment to this portfolio, and welcome to committee. I've been on this committee since the beginning of this Parliament, and we've seen a lot of travel chaos in that time. When we talk about the previous VIA incident in Cobourg in December of 2022, we had the then CEO of VIA here before committee, and I asked him whether he had heard from the then minister, your predecessor's predecessor, at the time of that and thereafter, and he had not. The answer was no. We had, of course, that same holiday season, quite a chaos at the airports in Canada where people were sleeping on floors, people were stranded in foreign countries, and we had the heads of the airport authorities for the 3 largest airports in the country, and we asked them, have you heard from the minister? And the answer was no, no, no. And so, you know, I want to ask and give you the opportunity to respond and tell us how it would be different with you, because obviously all of these messes have existed and there hasn't been, the minister's been missing in action. I would imagine during the time of travel chaos, the minister would be at the command center at Transport Canada, all hands on deck, sleeves rolled up and getting the job done. And so you've admitted that it's 2 big portfolios that you have, so how would it be different?
Well, I'll tell you how it's going to be different. I've already spoken with all the airline CEOs, the rail CEOs, including the VIA chair of the board and the VIA CEO. That's how seriously I take this job. That's how seriously I will continue to work on behalf of the Canadian population who needs rail service in order for us to have economic prosperity in this country, in order for us to get to work on time, in order for us to reduce carbon emissions, and in order for us to think big about what is possible in terms of connectivity in this country. And so I deeply resent the implication that I am not on top of this file. The opposite is true, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I didn't make that implication. I asked for your perspective on how you'd be different. So switching gears to airport delays, because we heard from a witness at this very committee last week who said that it was a 6 to 8 hour buffer that he plans to get from his home to Dorval Airport to in advance of his flight, just because obviously the delays at airports. And airports are federally regulated, and we know there's been a number of issues, and we've heard about that. The level of airport delays is unprecedented, and we've seen these problems not just at the 3 or the 3 or 4 large airports in the country, but at the smaller airports. We've had a study at this committee about northern airports. So there's a number of issues in the air sector. So again, what are you doing to address that issue? Because that's very directly impacting Canadians.
I agree that we need to have...
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Minister.
We'll stop your clock, Mr. Muse. You're at 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Yes, Ms. Koutrakis.
I'm just questioning the relevance on the question from my colleague. It pertains to the air sector, and I don't know, and the Minister is here before us, you know, on a specific issue with Via Rail, so I'm questioning relevance.
He's basing it on on that point of order. He's basing that on the passenger testimony we received, Ms. Koutrakis, so it's within...
So thank you, Ms. Koutrakis. The minister is appearing before us today to address the incident that occurred on August 31st. However, there was a link there between what one of the witnesses had said, so I'll let the minister respond, but I do want to say this, colleagues. We specifically invited the minister here to discuss that incident because we felt it was important enough for us to address it and to use the committee's time to address it, and we have the minister before us. So, Minister, the floor is yours. 3 minutes, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I hope I'll have the time to respond to this question. The first point I want to say is that I agree that delays are unacceptable. Delays are the responsibility not only of the airlines, but the airports and the airport authorities. And so what we have to make sure is that each one of them is carrying their weight. In my conversations with the airlines and the airport authorities thus far, as well as the airports, I have stressed the need to reduce delays. That has to happen. Post-COVID, one needs to see the airline sector functioning more efficiently. What are we doing? We are working with airports, airlines, and airport authorities on a regular basis to make sure that we're addressing the bottlenecks, and they are doing what is within their sphere. We are ensuring that airports are sharing data to ensure better planning and traveler experience. But this is an issue that I'm glad you raised, my honourable colleague raised, and I'll continue to stay on top of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muse, and thank you, Minister Anand. Next, we'll go to Ms. Koutrakis. Ms. Koutrakis, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Minister, and congratulations on your new function. I always say that if you want to see results, you give more work to people that are very organized, and you give it to the busiest people, and they will definitely come through with flying colors. And I have to tell you, Minister Anand, as a woman MP, I couldn't be prouder to have you as our Minister of Transport. I think you're breaking the ceiling for many young women and young girls who are watching you here today, and I couldn't be prouder. Having said that, we know that your predecessor had sent a letter to Via Rail on September 4th, 2004, and in his letter he had asked for certain response within 30 days. To your knowledge, do you know whether Via Rail respected the 30-day timeline, and did they come back with their action plan?
First of all, thank you very much for those kind words. I hadn't thought of that. So let me just say that, moving on to your question, Via Rail was asked by my predecessor to conduct a third-party investigation, review emergency management and action plans within 30 days, as you suggested, review training received by management and employees, review the communications with passengers, review and improve communication protocols, and assess mechanical failures. And I've spoken with the chair and the CEO of Via Rail. We have received an update from them in response to that letter. So some steps have been taken, which I'll elaborate on. As of September 3rd, 2024, VIA implemented a new escalation protocol for its staff on board trains and its operations control center. That protocol ensures that Transport Canada is immediately informed of disruptive events, and that if a delay is over 2 hours, VIA begins arranging alternative transportation options for passengers, like buses. In addition, Via Rail executives and employees who are responsible for operations have participated in in-person training sessions that took place in September. And this session was focused on emergency and crisis management plans. VIA has also commissioned 2 independent reports, one on understanding operational gaps that led to the incident, and the other on mechanical failures. Both will be delivered by the end of November. On October 7th, Via Rail conducted a tabletop simulation test to ensure that their crisis communication plan was in order. That tested emergency activation and response. And another is planned in November. And so lastly, I'll just say I've informed VIA to make changes to its communication protocol to ensure timely explanation. And I want to summarize by saying what took place on October 31st was unacceptable. My predecessor sent a list of demands. I have followed up with a phone call and now have received a response from VIA in terms of what it is doing and what it will come back with. For example, at the end of November, we still have not received an emergency action plan that provides a comprehensive play-by-play of how VIA will address some of the issues. And I want to say, I've given you an update of what VIA has done, but I'm not speaking for VIA. VIA is a Crown corporation. It is separately operated, and they are accountable. They need to come and tell this committee and the House of Commons what they are doing and what they have done.
Thank you for that, Minister. You know, in my previous life before becoming a member of Parliament, I used to lead teams in the financial industry. And in the beginning of the year, we used to put down, you know, objectives and what action plan we would put in place to make sure that they achieved results. Through your conversations with your department and also with Via Rail, do you feel confident that what they say they will be doing, they being Via Rail, they will achieve the results? And if they don't, what do you see as perhaps being some consequences?
That was exactly why I wanted to speak with the CEO and the chair of the board, and I asked for separate calls. I wanted to speak with them separately because they occupy separate roles in the corporation. every time there is a new chair, we put forward a letter of expectation, and the board has to hold executives accountable. That's why I wanted to speak with the chair of Via Rail alone, because that is the role of the board, and specifically the chair of the board. And that is the subject of our conversation. After that call, I then spoke with the CEO and emphasized the need for an implementation plan of all of the demands in Mr. Rodriguez's letter to them just after the incident occurred.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you, Ms. Koutrakis. Prochainement, nous avons Monsieur Barcelou-Duval.
Next up, Mr. Barcelou-Duval, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Minister, earlier you said that since you've become Minister of Transport, you were able to talk with all chairs and presidents of airline companies across the company. I wanted to talk to you about one airline in particular, that is Air Transat. Notoriously, Air Transat has been negotiating with the government. They're indeed trying to consolidate their pandemic debt because they had received a lot of financing over the course of the pandemic. But unlike Air Canada, Air Transat was not given preferential treatment. Point of order, Mr. Chair. Pardon me, Mr. Barcelou-Duval, there's a point of order on the floor. Earlier, Chair, there was a link between a witness who spoke of air companies, but now the Bloc Québécois member is asking questions that are directly related to air travel at a time when we're here to talk about what happened on August 31st. I'm wondering if this is relevant. Is this question relevant? Thank you, Mr. Lauzon. Mr. Barcelou-Duval, I tend to agree with Mr. Lauzon. We invited the minister to answer questions related to the incident that occurred on August 31st. And I don't believe that there is a link between that and your question today. So if you could focus your line of questioning on the incident at hand, that would be nice. You have approximately 2 minutes left. Perfect. Well, I would like to speak with the minister on that topic one day. That being said, the minister said that she spoke to airlines, and I was interested in pursuing that line of questioning. Specifically with regard to Via Rail, we've seen that there are constant delays. They went from 16% delays late up to 41% in 2023. And it is due to a chronic lack of investment and a lack of dedicated tracks. I'm seeing that the situation is getting worse and worse. The government has been in power for 9 years, and when it comes to the high-speed rail, high-speed frequency trains, we don't really know what this is going to look like. This is a campaign promise that has been around for a while now. Do you believe that the situation now is the result of your government's lack of action on this file and lack of ability to make any decisions?
Est-ce que je pourrais avoir clarification, Monsieur le...
Just a quick clarification, Chair. Is this related to high-frequency rail or high-speed rail, or is this related to the incident of the day? I'm going to allow you to ask your question again and maybe to clarify this question for the minister. In 20 seconds, it'll be pretty hard to summarize what I just said. What I'm saying right now, Madam Minister, is that now there are systematic delays and lack of services, and these are related to the fact that your government did not make the requisite investments, and it's been 9 years since you've been in power. Has your government come to terms with the fact that this is a failure, and does your government realize that it should have been working on high-frequency rail and high-speed rail for some time now? That is not the case. As I said already, we have invested in our railways. We are continuing to make these investments with high frequency and high speed rail. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
Sir, 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I sense my colleague's frustration that we have to constrain this conversation to the incident involving Via Rail. And since we do have a new Minister of Transport, I wonder if I could make a motion to invite the Minister back to this committee prior to the Christmas break to more broadly discuss her transportation mandate. And so if it's in order, I'll make that motion now.
Thank you, Mr. Bachrach, and I'm going to save you the time, and I'm actually going to let you start over so you don't lose your 20 seconds. There is another invitation on the table, which is why I'm being strict right now. The members have already asked that we invite the minister to come back and answer questions regarding supplementals as well as her mandate letter. So that's
the timing on that appearance, Mr.
I
Chair?
believe it was before the end of October. Yes. That's what's currently on the table, colleagues. So that's why I'm being very strict here and trying to make sure that we get the questions answered
By the end of
relating
October.
to Via Rail. Whether or not the minister has the time to do that is another story. But what I'm saying is that because we have another invitation on the table, then
We're generous with our invitations. You can come to committee anytime.
Mr. Bachrach, I'll let you start again, and you have your 2.5 minutes from the start, please.
Thank you very much. Minister, I really welcome the news that your government will be investing in the replacement of Via's long-distance fleet. It's going to make a huge difference for the sustainability and viability of those critical routes that serve rural Canada and places like the one that I represent in Northwest BC. However, your plan to privatize the corridor between Toronto and Quebec City is going to starve Via Rail of 95% of its passenger revenue. Have you been briefed on where that's going to leave Via Rail as a Crown corporation as it tries to serve the rest of this huge country with passenger rail service?
Merci pour la question. Ce n'est pas une matière de privatisation.
Thank you for the question. It's not a matter of privatization, but not at all. We have chosen a public-private partnership to call on experts to help. They have a direct experience with these trains. This is not a matter of privatization, but not in the slightest bit, Mr. Chair. We are continuing to work with the private sector, but also with the public sector. The public sector will have a role, naturally. This is because it's very important to continue to deliver for Canadians, and we can do it with a private-public partnership.
Could offer further
I only have 2.5 minutes. I'm at 1.5 minutes, so maybe 5 seconds? You can come back as well.
I never get invited to anything. So, as the minister said, with the public-private, the private sector partner will be able to deliver the operations in the corridor. What that will allow Via Rail to do is focus attention on the other routes, the ocean, the Canadian, the one in northern Manitoba, and focus their operational energies there.
Yeah, the challenge, if I may, is that, as you well know, right now the corridor provides 95% of Via Rail's passenger revenue. So it's going to be faced with trying to focus on the rest of Canada with mere crumbs from fare revenue, because they're serving long distances in sparsely populated areas. And my last point, Mr. Chair, and I see the yellow card, Minister, your assertion that your government's plan for HFR is not privatization is tough to it's tough to believe, because you're looking at a private sector partner that's going to design, construct, finance, operate, set the schedules for, set the fares for, and profit from that corridor between Toronto and Quebec City. If that's not privatization, I don't know what is. Sure, the corridor is going to continue to be owned nominally by the government, but this is a plan to privatize the most frequently used corridor in this nation, and I think it's a real shame. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bachrach. Next, we'll go to Mr. Viss. Mr. Viss, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, just to wrap up some of the things we've talked about, I learned today that the Government of Canada is the sole shareholder of Via Rail. I learned today that you've spoken to the CEOs of Via Rail regarding the incident in August and the delay in service. Here at this committee, we've heard from passengers and people impacted that they have to plan for a 6 to 8 hour window in order to plan accordingly to get from destination A to B with the services offered by Via Rail right now. So as the minister responsible, as the representative of the sole shareholder of Via Rail, can you guarantee to Canada today that as a result of this incident, we will see measurable improvement in services offered to Canadian passenger rail users?
I guarantee that I will exercise the oversight and authority vested in me as Minister of Transport to ensure that Via Rail does better for Canadian passengers, including in terms of delay and in terms of service. Via Rail is operationally independent, and I will exercise my authority as far as I am able. Thank you.
Operationally independent, yes, but as the shareholder, you can demand a time frame by which Via Rail must improve service delivery. Are you willing to implement a time frame to ensure services improve in the very near future? And would you be able to provide that time frame to this committee?
I will provide all correspondence with this committee, including the letter of expectations, including the letter that I have provided or that my predecessor provided to demand better service from Via Rail. The updated action plan will be completed in the coming months, and I will table that action plan with this committee. Everything will be in place by Q1 of 2025.
Q1 of 2025. Thank you, Minister. I'm just going to turn to some rail lines in another part of the country, the Wild West, British Columbia. My area of British Columbia has undergone more disasters, more expensive disasters than anywhere in the history of Canada. Since your appointment as minister, have you received any briefings on forecasting models for future environmental events impacting both the CN, the CP rail line, and the Southern rail line, which operate in the Fraser Valley?
I have engaged in discussions with my colleagues of this very issue, including CN, CP, and I am regularly updated on wildfires and natural disasters given the situation in this country, including in Western Canada.
In respect to the floods that took place in 2021, which wiped out all 3 railways from operational service.
Point of order.
Excuse me, Mr. Viss, we're going to stop the clock at 3 minutes and 2 seconds.
Just
Mr. Badaway.
relevance to the issue with Via.
Thank you, Mr. Badaway.
Well, let me take a moment to explain the relevancy. Via Rail operates on those rail lines. Via Rail services in British Columbia and rural Canada cannot operate in those areas if the rail lines are washed out again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I continue?
I will ask, Mr. Viss, though, that you find a way to link it with the incident of August 31st. That is why the minister is appearing here today, and we do have the minister invited to come back to discuss much broader issues.
Via Rail services were disrupted because the train line, the rail lines that they use were not operational in a way to meet their expectations. In British Columbia, the rail lines were not operational as well, the very same ones used by Via Rail in Quebec. What steps is the minister willing to take to ensure that the rail lines in British Columbia are operational when the next natural disaster comes? And I do believe, as your government has stated many times, that another natural disaster will come, which will wipe out all 3 of those railways simultaneously once again.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank my honourable colleague for understanding the dangers and costs of climate change, which is something I know members of his own party do not acknowledge, including I know that there are members in that party who deny the existence of climate change.
Thank you, Minister. I'm trying to ask a very serious question.
I will say that the issues that my honourable colleague has raised relating to CN and CP will be taken under advisement. I am committed to working with CN and CP to ensure that the rail network is sound.
Thank you.
And I will continue to
I'm
say
going to ask one more
that
quick
we'll
question.
work with the railways
The
to make sure
Nooksack
that
and
the
Sumas
infrastructure
Watershed
is
Transparent
resilient.
Boundary Flood Initiative is an international collaborative framework to identify actions to pursue and to reduce flood risk and restore habitats. Why is the Government of Canada not working with our counterparts in the United States to address this area of common concern? We have the province of British Columbia on the line. Why is the Federal Department of Transportation not participating in these critical international discussions?
I am going to have to just cut you off there. That it's not relevant to what we're discussing here today, sir.
Mr. Chair, I will challenge you on that point. The border is within kilometers of the rail lines in discussions. The rail lines cannot operate unless we consider the impact of the Nooksack River just over the border in the United States. It is completely relevant to the reliability of rail passenger services in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I have a point of order already from. I appreciate that, Mr. Viss. There's 5 seconds left in your time. If the minister wants to respond to that, there's 5 seconds left.
Thank the member for the question.
Thank you. We will now turn it over. Finally, Mr. Badaway, we don't have much time. I'll allow you to have one question, sir, and then I do have to let the minister go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, Mr. Viss's comments and questions were actually a perfect segue in terms of the question that I have. We have heard from the minister that she is ensuring that we have a commitment to passenger safety. We've heard that she wants to have a commitment from VIA with respect to enhanced customer service, a focus on reliability, as well as we heard in previous meetings, the compensation that was afforded to the passengers. But what I want to do, and as a segue from Mr. Viss, is speak about and ask about the infrastructure investments that have been made. As we all recognize, NTCF was a fund that was introduced by the former ministers, and of course has allocated and appropriated many funds to ensure that the infrastructure in place was brought up to date, in particular as it relates to rail improvements. But where I'm going with this is twofold. One is that, Minister, do you feel comfortable that VIA, within a more integrated multimodal network, because we recognize that not only here in Canada, but binationally, with some of the challenges that we're seeing with the integration of both or all methods of transportation binationally, do you feel comfortable that VIA can handle future expectations on levels of service within a more robust integrated transportation network with respect to the investments that have been made and the investments that are expected to be made to ensure the movement of both trade and people, such as this corridor that VIA is traveling on?
First of all, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his service as parliamentary secretary in this role and the leadership that he's provided certainly before I came into the role as minister. I want to say a couple of things. First, high level. I want to contrast the investments that we have made as a government in Via Rail to replace its aging fleet. $490 million 2021, $354 million 2022, $210 million 2023, 2024 funding a new fleet. Let me contrast this with the Conservative Party of Canada 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013, $0 invested. Since taking office, our government has invested over $797 million in replacing the corridor fleet. And so I will say that we have evidenced a commitment to Via Rail as a whole. Now, in terms, I know, Mr. Chair, that the honourable member is very concerned, and rightfully so, with supply chain resiliency. And I appreciate his work on that matter. The National Trade Corridors Fund is a trade-enabling infrastructure program. It helps infrastructure owners and users to invest in critical assets that support economic activity and the physical movement of goods and people. And so to date, our government has approved $4.1 billion in federal funding for 213 projects across the country, leveraging a total investment of $10.7 billion. So the answer to your question is yes, it is important.
Thank you very much. Mr. Badaway, and thank you, Minister. On behalf of all members of the committee, we want to thank you for your time here today. Colleagues, I'm going to suspend for 2 minutes so we transfer over to the next round of witnesses. The meeting is now suspended. witnesses from the Transport Department. We'll begin our line of questioning right away with Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for appearing, or in some cases staying. We appreciate that. And thank you in all seriousness for being here in person. It makes the questioning much easier, and so do appreciate it when the officials are able to make it down with us. So thank you for that. Just want to start with a little bit of you can give us a little bit of understanding. So in the minister's testimony, I got a little bit of inconsistency, if I'm honest, in the fact that she was both saying that we as a federal government are not responsible for VIA, and at the same time saying that VIA will do better. Does the Minister of Transportation, in accordance with the agreement or the association between the Government of Canada and VIA, have the authority to improve the service of VIA Canada in your understanding of their agreements?
So Via Rail is a Crown corporation, like other Crowns, are responsible for their operations, right? And so it is up to the management of Via Rail, when an incident like this happens or just in their regular operations, to ensure performance. It's the responsibility of the board of Via Rail to ensure that happens, right, in their interaction. So the minister, as the portfolio minister responsible, will set expectations to the chair of the board, and that...
Expectations public?
So thanks for the question. In terms of the expectations, those letters of expectations go directly from the minister to the board chair.
Okay, so could you provide us with those letters of expectations?
So in terms of providing to the committee, we'll go back and take a look at what we can provide to the committee in terms of letters of expectation.
Okay, so I would just like a unanimous consent to make this official, to request those documents be provided to the committee.
Yes, Ms. Katrakis.
Just a clarification. If I'm not mistaken, when the minister was here, in one of the questions, she did commit to forward to us the letters, her letter to Via Rail, the expectations. If I'm not mistaken, she's already committed to do that.
I'm just going to confer with the clerk to ensure that that's indeed the case. There isn't unanimity on whether or not those were the documents that she committed to providing, Madame Katrakis, Ms. Katrakis. Perhaps we'd have, I think there's a motion put forward for unanimous consent to request those. Do we have any objection? Seeing none, so adopted. Mr. Lawrence, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Could you also comment on the action plans and protocols that were changed at VIA, or the expectations, if you can, following the Coburg incident? The minister talked about those protocols not being followed. Could you specify what protocols were not followed that came from the department following the Coburg incident?
So I'm going to turn to my colleague for 1 second, but largely they were with respect to communications with the department, communicate our expectations of how they would have escalated this internally within VIA when something like this happens. But Lisa.
Yeah, so the protocol requires them to communicate with us when they become aware of a delay that's going to be, I think, 3 hours or more. And that's what they did not do, and so now we've strengthened that protocol requirement, and we think this was an isolated incident, and there are delays that happen in other instances, and they have been very good at communicating.
So for delays
with
of 3 hours or more, they're to contact Transport Canada. Is that? Is there any? Okay,
as soon as they become aware that there's going to be, like sometimes they know ahead of time that it's going to be a delay of 3 hours. As soon as they become aware that it's going to be 3 hours or more, they're to communicate with us.
Thank you very much. That's very useful. As I started up my first round and agreed to move it to the second round, at this point, I would love to have I'd love to get UC to have former Minister of Transportation Pablo Rodriguez, and now, of course, a member of Parliament, to come for an hour or more per the VIA schedule, to outline some of the communication that happened between his office, Transport Canada, and VIA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence. We have a motion on the floor that was previously put forward by Mr. Lawrence. We'll be discussing it now. Any questions or comments, thoughts on that? Yes, Mr. Badaway.
Just to clarify, so the motion is to you as chair to invite Pablo, or the former minister, to the committee. Yes. That's basically the motion? That's it. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll go to a vote. All those in favor of inviting the former minister? All those opposed? No objection. Okay.
How much time do I have left, Mr.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. So just going. So there was a breach in protocol that VIA was supposed to call you anytime there's a 3-hour delay or longer, and they did not contact you. When was the first time that the Transport Canada received notice of the delay in Quebec over Labor Day weekend? Sorry.
So I think it was at about 6:30. So the train had an initial mechanical issue, broken air hose, at 11:20 on August 31st, and we received our first notification at 6:45 p.m.
The initial
11:20.
So it was
7
hours or so, if I do my math correctly, until you received that, and that's when you first became aware of that. What was your response? Like, what? Okay, so they call in, and I'm more interested on a go-forward basis. We've got a delay, and then how do you work with VIA to sort the issues, or what happens?
So the protocol requires them to update us on an hourly basis once they've first notified us. I can tell you that there was regular communication with them throughout.
Do you have the ability to, for example, marshal resources? Like we heard one of the reasons why they didn't disembark passengers was because they thought it was unsafe to do. Obviously, the federal government has a lot of resources. Are you able to work with local police or otherwise to get people off?
So, as I understand, where they were exactly was on a bridge, so it would not have been.
No, but just in general, like I said, I'm more interested on a go-forward basis. So they're stuck in the forest.
That's up to them. That's up to them to call upon the resources that are available to them. The minister made reference to the fact that they actually have to make arrangements with bus operators, et cetera. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Iachino. Mr. Iachino, la parole est à vous. Vous avez 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Iachino, you have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank the witnesses for being with us this evening. During their appearance before the committee in September 2024, Mr. Mario Péloquin, CEO of Via Rail, said that Via Rail was making a complete assessment of the incident to determine the causes of the multiple mechanical breakdowns in train 622. Are you aware of these discussions between Via Rail and Siemens to identify the causes of these mechanical breakdowns?
L'investigation,
the investigation that Via Rail is leading is their own initiative. They said that they will be sharing the insights of that research as it is released. We will take that into account, of course, but we are conducting our own investigation. We are doing this to understand what exactly broke down, mechanically speaking, on that train. So you don't know the deadline for the findings. You don't know when these discussions will come to an end. You know that there is an investigation, but you don't know of the details, that is, when the findings will be communicated to you. Don't you believe that this should have been discussed earlier? At the moment, there are still trains that are transporting passengers, so shouldn't this be relevant for Transport Canada? We don't have a specific date, but we know that it will be in the months to come. Thank you. It is a challenge to have a set deadline because they don't know where their investigation is going to take them. Thank you. To your knowledge, have there been other mechanical problems, other major mechanical problems with these trains, the new ones?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So from a regulator's perspective, we're not aware of a systemic issue with the fleet at this time.
Dans quelle mesure êtes-vous satisfait de la performance?
To what extent are you satisfied with the performance of the new Siemens Venture trains?
Comme mon collègue vient de dire,
As my colleague said, there are no systematic issues there that we see time and time again. This is a new technology, so of course there will be adjustments to be made, but there are no problems with the new equipment to date. Thank you. The former Minister of Transport required that a better emergency management plan be developed, as well as a better communications protocol with Transport Canada and between Transport Canada and Via Rail within 30 days following the appearance in September. Have you received those documents from Via Rail? Thank you for the question, Chair. As the Minister said, we received a letter from Via Rail senior management. They have shared with us the key actions that they're taking.
We will be receiving those, but we haven't, as the Minister said, received all the complete action plans at this point in time.
Donc, à votre connaissance, Via Rail n'a pas encore répondu.
To your knowledge, Via Rail has still not met that 30-day requirement.
And we're waiting on others.
Voulez-vous décrire la participation de
Can you describe Transport Canada's role in these efforts?
Merci beaucoup pour la question. So,
as the question,
we will review the reports and findings that Via commissions and provides to us. We will do our own due diligence review to ensure that we're satisfied with any issues around the fleet, and I'm referring specifically to the fleet. And if we're not satisfied in any way, or we believe extra action should be taken from a safety perspective, we have the tools and measures as a regulator to impose those. That's on the safety side specifically.
Et donc, je suis content d'entendre ça. Justement, je me concentrais.
Happy to hear it. I was focusing on the safety and security aspects, so that is the safety of passengers. You know, I take the train. What deadline would be possible for you to have some details, some findings, so that we, as a committee, can reassure Canadians that it is okay to continue taking the train?
Premièrement, vu qu'on parle de sécurité.
First of all, since we're on the topic of safety, I will say that after the incident occurred, we did inspect the train, and there was no cases of non-compliance with our standards. The minister, as the minister said, we are expecting the report and recommendations in the first part of fiscal year 2024-2025. Thank you, witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Iacono. Next up, we have Mr. Barcelo Duval. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. With regard to the incident on Labor Day weekend, we learned that the train was stalled at that time, but the train, although was in this state, was transporting passengers. Do you have any update with regard to what kind of procedure should be implemented? When the train is lapping, do we need to, are passengers usually boarded at that point? Are there protocols to ensure that passengers remain safe?
Pour la question.
Thank you. The procedure to follow when a new train is brought on is the following.
Need to do to fulfill their obligations as a regulated entity, to provide assurances to us as the regulator that the new fleet meets the new safety standards. It's a lot of engineering, paperwork, documentation, and it's their obligation to demonstrate to us that the new fleet meets the safety standards. We do a due diligence review on that, and that includes, I would say, like dry run inspections before the fleet's introduced to satisfy ourselves that it meets those standards. And then in addition to that, the company themselves has a series of pre-commissioning milestones and procedures that they do. But that's the Transport Canada role. We don't have an official certification role. We're not a certification body, but we do play that due diligence review to ensure the engineering standards and guidelines are being met with any new fleet from any railway company.
Mais de ce que je comprends, il n'y a pas de test.
From what I understand, there's no tests where trains are empty, for instance, like a trial period per se. Is there a time where we see that trains satisfy engineering standards and then fill out the paperwork? Do they ask the train operators to see if this is the case? I don't have all the details, but I would only imagine that one of the main parts of railways is to do these dry runs. Yes, there were dry ones. Thank you. Mr. Tangaraj, earlier you wanted to supplement an answer to a question I had about the new fleet of long-haul trains. I might give you an opportunity to finish that thought now.
Thank you very much for the question, both times. So the government announced an investment in the new fleet outside of the corridor. And so these are for the long-haul fleet, typically the Canadian, the ocean. And so that will consist of locomotives as well as specialty cars. And so we're just wanted to give an update of where that is in process. And so VIA has launched some of the pre-procurement activities. In terms, for example, they have a request for information on just to do a market sounding of what is available, and then based on the information that's currently being reviewed, that will allow them to look at what is, how they would structure a request for qualification, eventually a request for proposals for the procurement of that fleet.
Avez-vous un objectif pour le moment de...
Currently, do you have an objective for deployment of the new fleet?
I don't have a date for that.
OK. Mais... Donc, il en existe.
There is no date. You don't know it.
On the date, the potential in-service date. They're going through the procurement process, which will inform when they will be able to pick a partner to do the preferred vendor for those things, and that will inform the in-service date. But
Donc, je vous pose la question parce que Via Rail avouait publiquement
The
que
reason I'm asking the question is that Via Rail has publicly admitted that in the last, rather, within a 10-year period, their fleet would not be functional. So I'm wondering if there is a new fleet that will be deployed within the next 10 years for the long-haul rail.
Now, but if the committee asks, I can see if I can find out.
OK. L'autre question peut-être que j'avais pour vous.
Another question I had for you, or for any of the officials today, is the following. There was a mechanical breakdown during Labor Day weekend on that train. Has that problem been solved? Has it been fixed? Could it be a problem that could appear on other trains, other models?
Je peux prendre la question.
I'll answer that one. The problem was fixed. There were mechanical issues. And also there was no crew or equipment there to fix the train on site at the time of the incident. At Transport Canada, we asked ourselves if this problem could appear in other cars. We will see the results of the investigation, but from what we've seen, this is not a systemic issue. Thank you, Mr. Basaluzval.
Floor is yours. You have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Given the on-time performance challenges that Via Rail faces, many of them related to the fact that they're sharing tracks with other carriers, the 3-hour notification requirement protocol seems quite short. How often does Transport Canada get notified by Via Rail about delays of 3 hours or greater?
I don't have the exact frequency. It's something we have the data. I just don't have it on me. It's something we could get back to you on.
I was thinking about during the pandemic, we saw airline passengers stranded on the tarmac on board airplanes for well over 3 hours. Does Transport Canada have a similar protocol with the airlines to notify the agency when there's delays of greater than 3 hours?
There's no operationally in a situation, for example, when there's a tarmac delay or a weather delay. Airlines will say with our Transport Canada Situation Centre, as well as with officials in the department, will notify us of what is going on, the anticipated time to resolve. It's an operating protocol they have that we've established probably during the pandemic, but that continues to this day.
And is it a similar threshold in terms of the notification period?
The notification period with respect to.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm just having a little trouble focusing on the witness testimony. I wonder if.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. I'm just going to ask all members to please keep their speaking on the sidelines to a minimum while the line of questioning is taking place.
Trying to send you a signal, but it's all good.
The notification period with respect to airlines, usually it's delays. In terms of delays or cancellations that are beyond sort of a window of an hour, because that's sort of, the threshold at which it's difficult for an airline to make up the time in the air. So that's on departure. So that's usually, and if there's something unusual about it in terms of a situation that'll have significant knock-on effects with, say, 10% of air passengers, that's when we get notified by a particular carrier of
That's a lot of notifications. As someone who flies a lot, I can tell you that there are a lot of delays. What would Transport Canada have done if Via Rail had notified the agency at the 3-hour mark in the case of the Via Rail incident between Montreal and Quebec?
Well, I can start. I mean, we're looking at, when our regulatory framework is about making sure that there are no fatalities, no lives lost that it's all about the safety of passengers. Normally, when they inform us that there's a situation happening, we will reassure ourselves that they are taking the steps necessary to, do we need to start making accommodation for transferring passengers? Do passengers have access to bathrooms, water, and food, and those sorts of things? So we will be asking those questions, but the Via Rail and all of the operators, they have an obligation to have those plans in place. And so as part of these are the things that we're reviewing with them to make sure that that their plans are, we're not prescriptive, but they basically have to make sure that passengers are safe.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to understand, because they're an arm's length Crown Corporation, and because, as the minister said, it's up to them to meet, keep the passengers safe and to deal with issues when they crop up. I'm just curious, where that line exists between, expecting them to meet their mandate and get passengers where they need to go, and Transport Canada flying in a helicopter and starting to tell them which bathrooms should be used when and that kind of thing. Like, what kind of hands-on approach would Transport Canada be equipped to provide? Are you going to direct Via Rail and say, we need you to do another water service and hand out more granola bars? What's the, it seemed to me like they were doing everything they could, given the resources they had. Do you go in an emergency situation like that and direct their staff to do things differently? So, the minister seemed very upset that they didn't notify Transport Canada, but I'm unclear what Transport Canada would do with that information.
I think it's, so in a situation such as that, the operational response is solely the responsibility of Via Rail. We get informed to make sure that the safety elements are covered off. So, for example, if it was due to a trespass or a derailment, that is where our role would kick in on the operational aspects of this. But they have to communicate with us in order for that to happen, and they have to communicate those things to us within a prescribed amount of time, so that we can provide assurances around safety. On the in-passenger, do we care about the passenger experience? Of course we do, but we will not operationally direct the response to Via on something like that.
So you might confirm that there are other operators that aren't going to pose a risk to the train that's broken down, et cetera. That's clear to me. If I could, Mr. Chair, I'll just ask one more question. In the airline sector, we now have passenger protection regulations, as flawed as they may be. There's certainly been a discussion about similar regulations in the passenger rail sector. Where are discussions at within Transport Canada on rail passenger protection regulations so that passengers would get the compensation they deserve in situations like this?
So, as part of this incident, we have looked at the issue of passenger rights. One of the outcomes of this is that Via Rail has very clearly put out expectations on their websites of what to expect and what passengers should be expected in terms of refunds, et cetera, or credits in the event of delays like this. And so, again, as an operator, I think they're in the best position to determine and work with their customers and be responsive to their customers in terms of how they address these types of situations.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Mr. Viss. Mr. Viss, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the Department of Transportation agree that the ports in Surrey and Vancouver are of vital national interest? Yes or no?
Under the Canada Marine Act, those ports.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm in the position as the MP for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, where all of the rail lines intersect in Canada, and we had a big disaster in 2021. The Fraser Valley was flooded out, all the rail lines were washed out, and we did get some DMAF funding, but it's not nearly enough to even bring us back to where we were in respect to the critical infrastructure that protects our rail lines, protects the Trans-Canada Highway from future disasters, because DMAF doesn't actually allow for infrastructure upgrades. So the City of Abbotsford asked me specifically today, and I guess I'll direct this question to Mr. Hutton, what funding programs will be put forward to invest in supply chain resiliency for a city like Abbotsford that has all of the major rail lines and basically like all of the major goods that Canada exports running through it. Where should Abbotsford go?
Thanks. And, the resiliency of supply chains and the communities through which there's major transportation activities and export opportunities is extremely important to us. That's why we've got the National Trade Corridor Fund that is there. And one of the objectives of that fund is to support the resiliency of supply chain.
Right. So I did actually look after Mr. Badaway brought up the $4.1 billion invested in the National Trade Corridors Fund. There was multiple funding allotment to the Vancouver Port Authority, some private sector companies that did benefit my region, absolutely. The Ashcroft Terminal being a big one in my riding as well. But there was no municipality in the country that receive funding under the NTCF as reported online today. So can you clarify, can the City of Abbotsford apply under the National Trade Corridors Fund to, for example, improve our pump stations that are critical to make sure the rail lines and the highway don't flood again? Can you answer that for me?
So I'd also say that there's other funding that's available to municipalities for things like you mentioned around sewer, wastewater, water management that's included as part of the suite of programs at Infrastructure Canada.
Right. So does transportation, if you can't answer that because you're not Infrastructure
Chair,
Canada,
point of order.
what?
Yep.
Point of order.
Cut you off there.
I've let it go, but it's getting worse. We're getting way off the topic here.
No.
So, Mr. Chair, we're talking about the incident with Via Rail. That's what we're talking about. So, I just want to
Mr. Badaway, if you'd like, I could go over your previous testimony.
I have the floor right now. You can respond to it when the chair asks you to respond to it. But right now, I have the floor.
I'm ready to play politics when you are.
So, Mr. Chair, point of order, relevance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Badaway. So we've given some leeway in the second round, but I will ask everybody to try and bring it back to the subject matter at hand. If you could, it would be greatly appreciated.
But I'll just on that point of order, Mr. Chair. It is the usual practice of committees, and I've had the fortune of sitting on many committees, and I'm sure Mr. Badaway has. And with the minister, I can understand a little bit more strictness, and but generally with officials, there is a great deal of leniency, and we would appreciate it if that courtesy would and we'd be. I'm quite confident be agreeable to returning that courtesy. So,
thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
If I can respond to that,
Very briefly, Mr.
and that's why I waited so long to call point of order, was to give that leeway. But now it's going way over. But Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Viss, let's be clear. This is a study that we're embarking on, and I'm valuing the time that we have with both the minister and the department. So I really want to talk about the issues, questions and answers on the incident, so that way we can get that quality information from the department with respect to the incident. That's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm sure that we can come up with some very productive dialogue with the department. You have the department here with us today to try and deal with the situation and give respect to the situation that we're trying to discuss today with respect to the VIA incident that happened this past September. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Badaway. Once again, I'm just going to ask everybody to try and bring it back as much as possible. There is a lot of leeway that's already been given, and you've actually done a very good job of perhaps having a preamble that brings you to that point.
I'm ready to do that again.
Mr. Muse did a very good job. You did as well, Mr. Viss, and I would ask you once again if you could try and do that with this particular line of questioning. It would be beneficial to the chair.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just note that it was Mr. Badaway that raised the National Trade Corridors Fund. I reviewed the 130 programs that the Government of Canada funded. None of them related to Via Rail. None of them related to passenger rail service. It was Mr. Badaway that informed me of the $4.1 billion. As you will note, Mr. Chair, all of my questions have been related to the very fund Mr. Badaway raised in committee first. If that was not out of order, how could my questions be out of order, Mr. Chair? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Viss. I would ask if there are any feelings that perhaps another member is not sticking to what the purpose of the meeting is, that they bring that to the attention of the chair.
I appreciate you, Mr. Chair. In the case, Mr. Hutton.
Hug it out.
Mr. Hutton, in the case where Abbotsford actually receives reliable and rural via rail services one day, we will have to consider the impact of pump stations and the ability of our existing rail lines to serve passengers if and when we ever get that service with reliable infrastructure for the people of British Columbia. If the city of Abbotsford wants to prepare for that eventuality one day, what funds should they be looking at to ensure that they have the requisite infrastructure in place that is not only climate resilient, but able to serve the future passengers of Via Rail in the Fraser Valley, which also serves as one of the most critical trade corridors of the entire country? Thank you.
Wow.
For Pete's sake.
Was that for one person in particular, Mr. Viss? It was a very good question.
It was
I want
to
to
Mr. Hutton.
Mr. Hutton, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. The Canada Community Building Fund that's administered by Infrastructure Canada would be an appropriate fund for PTs to apply to. That said, PTs are also able to apply as eligible proponents for the NTCF.
Are those funds currently open right now?
Sorry, can I get that response from Mr. Hutton?
There's no open call at the moment for the NTCF.
When will the calls for proposals be open again?
I think, Mr. Chair, that's something that will be considered by the government for the future, based on demand.
We'll have 30 seconds left, Mr. Viss.
In the eventuality the Via Rail decides to operate in the Fraser Valley once again, has Transport Canada done any studies on the impact of our border crossing flooding and what impact that would have on future passengers with Via Rail?
Point of order, Chair. This is not relevant.
There's 20 seconds left. I'm just going to allow a quick response to this, please.
I'm not aware of that, Mr. Chair, but I'm not speaking either for other departments that may have undertaken some work in this area.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank Mr. Viss for attempting to make that link. I appreciate it very much, sir. I think you did actually a good job. Well, next we'll go to Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Well, welcome to our witnesses today, and I want to focus a little on the passenger that we had as a witness in one of our previous meetings. I want to focus on the things that he talked about and some of the frustrations, of course, and the things he endured through that 10-hour period, and some of his frustrations. And one of the questions I asked him was about, in terms of the complaint process. Via Rail talked about how they received multiple complaints through a variety of means and so on, and they respond to all valid complaints. So I want to ask you, as officials, are you aware of Via Rail's complaint mechanisms and responses, and how they actually respond to the complaints of the passengers that were on that particular train, 622?
So as part of the minister's request to Via Rail was to provide details on how Via Rail communicates with passengers and resolves complaints. And so what Via has noted is that they will ensure that there is 24/7 support to communicate information to passengers and to the public. And again, I think there's more that they will provide us in terms of their response on customer service, but they have made that initial commitment.
Okay. And I'll ask this question. In your opinion, was the appropriate compensation for this delay provided to these passengers? That this gentleman testified about having a free trip somewhere on Via Rail and some other compensation, but it seemed to be pretty meager. So, you think that was adequate compensation, or should there be a major improvement in that?
So I'm not aware of what VIA did provide in terms of compensation, but as I said earlier, they are clarifying, again, providing passengers with clarity about what they should expect in terms of refunds and other compensations such as credits for events like this, but that determination is the responsibility of VIA Rail.
Yep. Actually, they did provide a travel credit that would expire within 1 year, and a couple of other things. The other question I'm curious about is the train 622 was a part of a new fleet of Simon's Venture Transit, and which is currently being phased in throughout Windsor to Quebec Corridor. Are you aware of the ongoing discussion between VIA Rail and Simons to determine the cause of the mechanical breakdowns? And are satisfied are you with Simon's response to these mechanical issues?
So we'll turn to.
So this is part of the investigation that is ongoing, and actually, since the original question was asked, we have found out that the report of that is due to us sometime in the first half of November, so sooner than I had said earlier. So those discussions are ongoing, and we expect the report in the coming weeks. And as I said previously, we will take that report and it will be useful to us, but we'll also be doing our own assessment of that report and what transpired.
So, are you aware of any other, I guess, significant mechanical breakdowns with these new trains?
No.
Okay. Okay, and when I think about 622, 10-hour delay that was experienced by the passengers on that train, was it due to a lack of protocol that was in place at the time, or was it due to a failure in following existing procedures or protocol?
Stephen may help me on this, but it was a confluence of events. So part of it was mechanical in the sense that there was a hose that got worn. They couldn't repair it on site, which causes, you've got to get somebody in to come and fix it. And then I believe that the train that came to the rescue, there happened to be an issue with that one as well. So I mentioned that they didn't have the proper equipment to do the repairs. They fixed that. And then there was some lack of training of personnel.
Thank you.
On the train as well. So far that's what's been identified.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sir, you are 30 seconds over. You are asking this committee for a great deal, sir.
Disability, people with disabilities on the train.
If that's the question, I think we should give you the time, sir.
Okay.
By all means, Mr. Rogers.
I wouldn't have advanced. I would not. Just so you're clear. I would not.
Yeah, I was
Mr. Rogers, I don't see any objection. By all means.
What the experience was for people that might have been in wheelchairs or people with disabilities on that train. Was there any report on that particular?
So I don't have details on specifically how persons with disabilities may have been handled or treated on this train. Generally speaking, passenger railways, as part of their passenger handling safety plans, need to have procedures and training in place to assist persons with disabilities, including during emergency and crisis situations where they may need assistance to evacuate or move to another location. So those procedures are a requirement that railways must have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott, and thank you, Mr. Rogers. That was a great question. Prochainement, nous avons Mr. Barcelou-Duval. À vous la
Next up, we have Mr. Barcelou-Duval for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. We've heard from witnesses who were passengers on train 622, and we've seen articles in the news as well. And they spoke of a lack of food aboard the train. They were being given pretzels, small chocolate bars. I've taken multiple Via Rail trains, and I'll tell you right now, there's not a lot of pretzels in their pretzel bags. There might be 3 pretzels max in those bags. It's not really a form of sustenance, if you will. In the letter that was sent by Minister Rodriguez asking for changes at Via Rail, I saw nothing that related to passengers' supply of food. Is this something that you're looking at Transport Canada? That is, will there be enough food given to passengers if there's any mechanical breakdown or major delays?
Food, and as colleagues have mentioned, water, food, working lavatories is essential. And so as part of that escalation process where VIA officials will decide at what point should alternative transportation, when can this be fixed, in that assessment that they will do at the second hour of the delay, they will take into consideration all of those things in making that decision.
Si je comprends bien, vous laissez ça à Via Rail.
So it's up to Via Rail to determine these protocols. You have no intention of stepping in at this regard. To me, it's pretty obvious that there are some serious gaps here.
Ils ont effectivement.
I will say that they did order food for passengers during the time that they were there. Pizza was ordered, if you wanted to know. This is up to Via Rail to manage. We expect that they will take action accordingly, but that would be a good question to ask Via Rail. I understand you're saying that it's via Via Rail's shop at the end of the day, but it is in the Minister of Transport's portfolio. Transport Canada is the regulator. Maybe just telling them about this would be a good idea. And if it came from the minister, they would probably listen. I have no more time? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Transportation Action Canada, in the wake of this incident, recommended that that Transport Canada treat trains that are broken down, like the one in this circumstance, in a similar way to trains in a station. I believe there's a rule for trains in a station that protects them from other trains that might be on the corridor and controls speeds and that sort of thing, protects passengers. Is this something you're familiar with, and is it something that Transportation or Transport Canada is considering?
I'm not familiar with that specific recommendation. Generally speaking, there are procedures in place when a train comes to an unexpected stop or breaks down somewhere. There's emergency broadcast requirements through the Operations Network Center, communications with the Rail Traffic Control Center to alert nearby trains. So from a pure safety and security perspective, there's well-established procedures in place to ensure that a particular disruption doesn't cause a bigger safety issue or accident.
And does that include speed limits on other trains that might be passing on adjacent tracks?
Very much likely. I can't say for sure. But
following up on a question Mr. Barcelou-Duval had a little while ago, I'm wondering if Transport Canada has analyzed the risk of fleet loss on the long-distance fleets, understanding that Via Rail is struggling to keep the old trains operational. and there's a huge risk to service on those routes, and we don't have a timeline for the replacement of the fleet with the new trains. Has it been analyzed by Transport Canada?
So we do have a date
You have
for
a date?
the replacement, 2034.
Okay, there we go. That just came in. Good. Thank you. That's a long time from now. These trains are breaking down all the time, it seems, and the CEO of Via Rail said their mechanics are performing miracles just to keep those old 1950s cars on the rails. But there hasn't been a formal analysis by Transport Canada of the risk of service loss due to equipment breakdown on the long-distance routes? Maybe you can say you're not familiar. Maybe there hasn't.
I don't have.
Okay.
I'd have to verify that.
The last question I'm going to ask on behalf of our chair, because he's preoccupied with this question of Army rations. Well, this is your question. So, yeah, okay, there we go. Look. See how that works when you pander to the chair? No, the chair was asking about whether some sort of like durable ration could be stored on board trains as a way of ensuring that people have enough calories in situations where, unfortunately they're stranded for more hours than there are regular rations for. Is that something that could be regulated through Transport Canada, or is it not something that's been discussed? This is Peter's idea. So.
Well, I won't go that far. I think we'd have to look at what our legal authorities and where we can regulate. What I would suggest is, again, this would fall under the operational remit of Via Rail, and so that is something that I will raise with the chair.
But things like the amount of food could be regulated.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That I'm not sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Backrack. You have 1 additional minute added to your time in the next meeting. Appreciate that very much, sir. On behalf of all committee members, I want to thank our witnesses for appearing today and for providing testimony to this very important study. Colleagues, before I adjourn, I just want to remind everyone that the clerk will be waiting for witnesses for the study that was put forward by Mr. Barcelou-Duval, which is regulation of recreational boating on Canada's waterways. She's expecting those no later than Tuesday. If you could provide at least a preliminary list so she could get started. When we resume after the break, we will be embarking on the clause-by-clause of the McKinsey study. Following that, we will be embarking on the 4 meetings for Mr. Barcelou-Duval study. And then following that, we will be doing the clause-by-clause on the accessibility study. This meeting is now adjourned. Yes. Yeah.